Bava Batra, page 84. We start with 83b. Fascinating daf. We're going to discuss business, meaning this is something common. Imagine you're flying, let's say we are here in New York, you're flying to Los Angeles. And with those airlines, you check in and they tell you if you want a preferred seat or you want a good seat, pay another $60 for a seat. That's very common. Now what do you do if you go on the plane and all of a sudden they charge you $60 extra for a seat and half of the plane empty? So what do you do now? You feel like cheated. You feel like taking advantage of you because you thought originally when you hooked in on the site that's basically packed and you don't want to be in the middle, you want to have a aisle or etc. So you chose that seat. It's just an example. So here we have a concept we're going to learn at depth. It's called shtut. Shtut meaning with tough. It's 1/6. That's the permissible amount of money that one can make. The Torah said, "V'chitim keru mimkar la'amitecha." When two parties have a transaction between them, Al tonu ishit achiv. So we are prohibited to have any form of taking advantage of the other parties. So for example, if the product worth 5 and you sold it for 6, or you sold it for 8, or if it's worth 5, somehow you sold it below. When exactly and how the seller and or the buyer can back out the deal and said that's not fair, that's mekach ta'ut, or that's wrong, it shouldn't have. So if it's pachot mishtut, if it's less than 1/6, that's called mekach, which means that it's in a framework of, you can call it in modern day, a fair framework of fair business actions. If it's yeter la mekach, as Tosfot tells us on page 84, if it's exceeded more than the amount of money that the party agree upon, so there is a notion that either one of the party, or at least the purchaser, can back out. Shtut, as we said, is 1/6. 1/6 by very definition is a point of disputation between the rabbis. There are some who said that the amount of money that was total taking advantage or misconstrued by the other party, that's the responsibility of the seller. But there are those who say that it's all depend upon the wishes of the buyer, because so many times the buyers get along with certain term and condition that it's a post selling situation. So we going to deal with this in a different phases, such as let's say we start simple cases. You, let's say many of us have a tzedakah box at home, charity. Some have more than one. Some, you go to a Jewish store, you're buying a tzedakah box. So you dedicated a box to be a tzedakah box. Is that box belongs to you or belongs to the organizations? Is the money that collected in that box belongs to them, obviously, because people dedicate the money to them. But how you treated the framework of the box, because it's not just the box, it can be other similar situation of a changing ownership of a state when it's come to questions like that. Furthermore, we're going to deal with materials themselves. Let's say someone sold, Reuven sold to Shimon wine and it turned to be a vinegar. Or he sold him a vinegar and the other party came home and it turns to be wine. How exactly you treated this type of businesses? As a side note, we're going to study the Ramban, fascinating Ramban, dealing with the color of the sun. Fascinating subject, which is the reflection or the color that we recognize the sun and its meaning versus the spiritual or mystical or esoteric meaning of the sun. So here we are, the very bottom of page 83b. אמר רב חיסדא, מכר לו שווה 5 ב6 והוכר ועמד על 8, מי נטענה? So Rav Chisda said, imagine a situation, you have a seller, And the seller sold to a buyer an item that worth, for example, let's say in our days, $500. And he sold it for $600. And the item became more expensive and its value stood at $800. And the seller wished to return the money and cancel the sale because the item's value had increased. So who was exploited here? Because the whole concept is the shtut, is 1/6. Can you say that one party can back out and said yes or not? So here we are with a very famous Rambam. Rambam said as follows. I'm just reading from the translation of the great Rabbi Steinsaltz, Hashem give him a strength and a refuah shelema, Rabbi Adin Even Israel. So this is his Gemarrah Koren edition translation of the Rambam. Rambam Hilchot Mechirat, chapter 12. In a case where a seller sold an item for more than additional 1/6 of its value, and the item appreciated in value so that it was now worth more than the price for which it was sold, only the buyer can renege on the sale. This is because if there had been no exploitation, the seller could not have reneged on the sale, and he should not benefit from his transgression. So basically this halacha follow, which we're going to learn soon, the Rav Chisda view. If the seller sold an item worth 500 for 600, the halacha is followed basically the Rava that we learned. This is a big discussion we learned on Bava Metzia 49b. You can watch us and see where we are there. David always and others always said that we should mention that you should forward our study to others, Yagdil Torah v'yadira, so more people subscribe, more people learn Torah together. Anyway, and even the buyer cannot renege on the sale unless he bought an item for more than an additional 1/6 of its value. If he bought it for precisely 1/6 more than its value, the seller must pay back the additional 6. And that's the crucial part we talk about shtut. That's the Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat 227. That's the concept of shtut that he needs to. But here's a discussion between Tosfot on 84 and others. What exactly the amount of shtut and who is involved with 1/6? But let's continue with the Gemara, and we'll go back to the hopefully time allowed to Tosfot and the Rambam. Basically, we study it in Bava Metzia 49, and those of us who have the time go there also to read and listen to our talk there. Anyway, hukar ve'amad al shmona minit ana. So if it's become more expensive, who exploited here? One side, we said, lokeach יכול לחזר בו ולא מוכר. So if you tell the buyer, so okay, so the buyer can renege the sale, even the seller loses out. And he said mishum, the idea is because, and that's the whole idea of chidush of Rav Chisda, the Rashbam explained, because even we go to the level of 8, that they have bitul mekach. That's the chidush here. But anyway, page 84, the Amar lay, that here the buyer can say to the seller, ilu lo onitan, if you're not exploited, meaning in a way I feel cheated. Remember the story with the airplane? I just use it as a springboard, as an example. You go there, you think, oh, the plane is full of people, and guess what? I'm buying my seat because otherwise I'm stuck. And you buy an aisle seat or whatever you wish to, in advance seat, and you walk in. So here, if I not feel cheated or exploited at the time of the sale, lo have matzid adart bei. So you will not be able to renege on the sale, and I will receive the profit. Hashta de onitan, now that you have exploited me. It's a total different story. Matzita darbach. You can renege on the sale of benefit. And Rav Chisda bring a brighter that סיוע can help us to understand that. ותן נתון היפות ונמצאו רעות. We learn in the Braita, if someone sold, מכר לו חיטין, if someone sold to another one, just to use it as an example, sell him a wheat, and the claim is obviously that he's great, he's wonderful, and all of a sudden he turned to be not, ונמצאו רעות, it's low quality, לוקח החזור לחור בבנו המוכר. So the buyer can change backed out, not the seller, right? Even can turn that the item became expensive. Remember that story we once said in Gemarrah? It was one of the great rabbis when he was young. He did something that was a big disputable if it was a great deed or not. He was a kid before the bar mitzvah, and he noticed in the shuk, in the market, people put the fancy tomatoes on the top and rotten, horrible tomatoes on the bottom, under that. So he went to one of those places and he took the agala, whatever you call it, the big bag, and throw it out so people can see what is the truth going on. Here is the problem. Imagine that you're buying a product that can survive for a certain time, okay? And you're buying this product now with a certain understanding. Let's say you're buying this beautiful, fresh, great wheat, and you buy it, for example, for $50, big bag, large bag, and it turns, you buy it and understand that it is a quality A, and it turned to be quality C, which is it's digestible, but usually they don't use it for people. Just use it as an example. Now all of a sudden, for some reason, either because the market is schwach, is hard, or because they need it for animals, or whatever it is, this 50 turned to be 80. Now when you bought it as an A. So the question is, what do you do with that? Can you say that it can back out now all of a sudden because the value itself, which was total, in a way cheated, exploited on him, now, so they said that, so the purchaser can change his mind, but not the seller. ואמר רב חיסדא מכר לו שווה 6 ב5, הוזלו ועמדו על 3. מי ניתנה? Again, if it was 600, 500, and it's now the other way around, it turned to be lower price. מוכר יכול לחזור בו ולא לוקח. דאמר לאילו לא ניתן, לא הווה מצרת השטר מציא דרבך. So it's a whole claim. He said that if you didn't do it, if you not exploited me, you will not be able to renege the sale. Now that you have exploited me, can you renege the sale? ותנא תונא, and our Tana in the Mishnah, רעות ונמצאו יפות, בוחר יכול לחזור בו ולא לוקח. So if he sold him as something good, something that is very, very bad, and then it turned to be something that is good, so the seller can negate the sale, but not the buyer. Again, in the business world, it's very common. People not aware. I give you a small example, just come to my mind. When I bought my first property in Hillsong, New Jersey, so the person, it's an elderly lady, sold me that home, and when she moved out, I just fixed the place. So I fixed the place, I called the contractor, and he cleaned up our whole basement. 2 weeks later, she called me up and she said, can I have my toys? And I said, the property was sold 2 weeks ago, I have the contractor painting and do all these things, what do you need? And it turns that she have very, very, very old, like a small toys that very rare from England, goes back hundreds of years ago. And she hid it in her basement. But guess what? I don't have it either, in that sense. She didn't tell me a word, she totally forget about it. Now, 2 weeks after the sale, which anyway, I didn't have it at that time. But trace the situation, even I have it. So, what do you do now? In a sense, when a person sells something, he sell it and he sell what he sold. And in the mindset when you're selling, it's done. I didn't have it in that case, but think if somehow part or full of that rare product was found. So here, the Gemara asks, "Mai kamashman matnitin hi? Im matnitin avamina dil barav chizat travayu matzoad rebeu." Both of them, according to Rav Chizda, can change the mind, meaning the seller and the buyer. Umatnitin mishum dechtiv ra yomar hakoneh. There is a pasuk, is a verse in the book of Proverbs, chapter 20. They said, "It is bad, it's bad," said the buyer, but when it is gone his way, then he boasts. So what you see here, it's the usual manner of sellers to praise their merchandise, while buyer disparage it. Therefore, the Mishnah teaches that the buyer can renege this on the sale if the item was found to be bad, and the seller can change his mind if it was found to be good. Now, we should know, you see it in the business world all the time. You see a guy come, let's talk even real estate, guy come to your property and start badmouth the state. Here is wrong, here is wrong, here is wrong, here is wrong. And he tried to convince you that you have a horrible product. And then before you leave the place, guess what he said? What's the best you can do for me? How much you sell it for me? In other words, let's say give a number. You want 300. The guy comes in and make it miserable for you. And then he said, can you take 250? So the truth is, he thought that it's worth at least 250 or even 300. He badmouthed and put you down. For what reason? Because he wanted to get it in his price. And vice versa. The seller always exaggerate, or usually exaggerate and make it beautiful and hide those things that they have a problem. Why is that? Because he wants to make the sale. Anyway, particularly you see it in a car business, right? They are ready and willing to sell you a Brooklyn Bridge when they sell you a car, and sometimes they are total untruthful. So here is the Mishnah said, if one sell the others, chita is wheat, shchamtia v'nimtzet levana. Shchamtia is like reddish brown, but all of a sudden it turned to be white. Amar Rav Papa midliktane levana, because the Tana used the word levana, white, so it means shmamina haishimsha sumaktihi. So you derive from that the sun is sumakti. It's red. Chama, color of the sun. Teida, you should know. The kasamka tzafra ufnaya, that the sun is like a contrast. So there are two types of wheat. The wheat that is white, the wheat is red. So here you have the sun that it's in the morning, you see it as a red, and then in the sunset, sunrise and sunset is red. The idea that we, the people, cannot see the sun in its color of red, the horinu de lo bari, because our capability of seeing, eyesight, is not so strong, so we cannot discern the redness of the sun. So the Gemara challenged that and said, Meitive. Here we're going soon to the Parsha, in a matter of a week, we're going to the Parshat Metzorah. And the Torah said in Parashat Metzorah, when it's come to the leprosy, Umar'ehu amok min ha'or. They said in Leviticus 13, its appearance is deeper than its skin. Kemar'eh chama amuka min hatzel. So it's like the appearance of the sun, which is deeper than the shadow. Vehatam, and over there, in leprosy, Lavanhu, they said in Vayikra 13 that it's white, V'im ba'eret levana hi. So it means that's the opposite, that the sun color is white. So they said Kemar'eh chama velo kemar'eh chama, which means in one side it's like appearance of sun in certain aspects, but it's not. How? Kemar'eh chama damuka min hatzel. If it's like appearance of the sun, it's like deeper than the shadow. ולא כמראה חמה, דאילו הטם לבן והאח האדום. Because over there the appearance it's white. And there is the sun is red. So it means the bride had not meant to juxtapose the appearance of the leprosy to the appearance of the sun, only because they want to show the depth, the amkut, but not in a sense of color. The one who said initially that the sun is white, so but you see that it's red in the morning and in the evening. So they said bet safra dechalfa abei vardei de Gan Eden. In the morning, because it's passed over the site of roses of Garden of Eden. Ubefnaya dechalfa pitcha shel Gehinom. In the evening, that it's pass over the entrance of Gehinom, of in a sense like hell. But the idea is the fire reddened the light. There are those who say the opposite, that in the morning it passes over the entrance of Gehinom, and the evening is the Garden of Eden. Let me share with you a beautiful Ramban in Sha'ar Gmul. I would like to read it for those who understand Hebrew first, and then I'll try to translate him. It's just a short paragraph. Carries a lot of sense. גן עדן מצוי הוא בעולם הזה במקום ממקומות הארץ. In general, it's the paradise. You see it in the current world, which again we need to understand the meaning, in the land. וארבעה נהרות יוצאים משם, and there are 4 rivers, as mentioned בראשית, come out of that. וכל מה שבא בכתוב מפשוטי סדר בראשית הכל אמת, אין מקרא מהם יוצא מדי פשוטו. ואנשי המידות עצמן אמרו שגן עדן תחת קו ההשוויה שלו יוסיף היום ולא יחסר. ובספרי הרבעות ליוונים הקדמונים, in the book of medicine to the ancient Greeks, וכן בספר הסף היהודי יספרו כי אספלקנות חכם מקדוני ו40 איש מן החרטומים מלומדי הספרים הלכו הלוך וארץ ועברו מעבר להודו קדמת עדן למצוא קצת עצי הרפואות ועץ החיים למען תגדל תפארתם על כל חכמי הארץ. So basically those scholars in Greek and India went around the globe and tried to show that they wise in that sense. ובבואם אל המקום ההוא ויברק עליהם להט החרב והמתהפכת. When they reach that place, they have this burning fire, sword, והתייהלו כולם בשביב הברק ולא נמלט מהם איש, וכל הדברי אמת גלויים ומפורסמים עד היום. So again, I would like to leave it as is because this is a little bit Kabbala, but the concept in our Gemara is a springboard to that Ramban. Anyway, Yain ונמצא חומץ. So here the Mishnah said, if someone, seller sold the wine, and guess what, the guy come in, and what is it? He found that he is a vinegar, or vice versa. He thought that he is a vinegar and it turned to be wine. שניהם יכולים לחזור בהם. Both parties can back out, rename. It's total misunderstood. You mean to say that the Mishnah is follow Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, not to follow the view of the sages, because they disputed if yain and chometz, wine and vinegar, are one species or separate 2 species. The Tanya we learned in the Braita, and here we are, page 84b. Yain v'chometz min echadu. This is in Tosefta in Trumot, chapter 4. They said that when it's come to food, that one separate Truma from one of these with the intention that it should exempt the other. So the action is effective, which means you consider both the wine and vinegar as one type of food. So the Gemara said, Rabbi Omer Shne Minim. Rabbi said that there are 2. So the Gemara rejected. Let me first read it and then we go to several halachot derivative from that. Afilu tema Rabbanan, if you tell me that the Mishnah followed the view of the sages, at kan lo plig Rabbanan lo Rabbi אלא עניין מעשר ותרומה. כדרבי אילאה, tema Rabbi אילאה מנין תורם מן הרעה ליפה שתרומתו תרומה. He said if someone unfortunately, he basically separate truma from poor quality produce for superior quality produce in order to fulfill the obligation of separate truma from the high quality produce. Some people have behaved like that. So they said, שנאמר ולא תישאו עליו חטא בהרימו את חלבו ממנו. Torah said in במדבר, chapter 18, and you shall not bear a sin or, by reason of it, seeing as you have set apart from its best. אם אינו קדוש, תשיאו את חטא למה? מכאן לתורם מן הרעה ליפה שתרומתו תרומה. אבל עניין מי כך וממכר, דכולי עלמא איכא ניחלה בחמרה ולא ניחלה בחלה, ואיכא ניחלה בחבלה ולא ניחלה בחמרה. So again, there are those who prefer the vinegar and there are those who prefer wine. But as far as the halacha is concerned, we follow the Rabbanan that it's min echad, both of them. But there is a Ramban and the Ran that say that we have to differentiate between chometz and others. Let me share with you the Rambam in Ilchot Trumot chapter 5. אין תורמין חומץ על היין, אבל תורמין יין על חומץ, שהיין וחומץ מין אחד הוא. So it means that the Rambam disputed and hold that even the ikal nichal bechala, there is a prohibition to separate from chometz and yain the same as ra'ah al ayafa. But anyway, this is something that if time allow we can go to halachot. I just want to give you the vignette of halacha from the Shulchan Aruch Yoreh De'ah in 331. One should not separate truma from a poor quality produce in order to superior quality produce permitted lechatchila, even if both are the same type of food. Rather, one should separate truma from poor quality produce for poor quality produce and from superior quality produce for superior quality produce. After the fact, b'diavad, if one separate truma from poor quality produce, for the superior quality produce, the truma is valid. That's basically the Rambam also in Chot Trumot chapter 3. It's reminding the story of Cain and Abel, that the whole brother killed brothers because of jealousy, but it wasn't reason for jealousy because Hashem accepted Abel and not Cain, because he gave, in a sense, from the top quality of his produce versus Cain. We always said, if you give something, give not from leftover, give a good. Anyway, here we go to a new subject, which is Darkei Kinyanim, the subject that we visited in the past, Kovetz Shiurim and Sodachosh and many others that deal a lot with this subject, which is Ilchot Kinyanim, the method that acquiring a movable property. Kibla minei or lo kibla minei? So did Rav Zera accept this claim from Rabbi Asi or not? Which is the whole idea of the intent of Rabbi Yochanan, that even if he measure the ground of this alleyway, he acquired or he did not accept it, and he hold that it's only Rabbi Yochanan meant when he did it in his basket. Tashma. Damar Rabbi Yanai Amar Rabbi Chatzar HaShutafim Konim Ze Mizeh. So here we talk about the partnership in the yard. So if you have courtyard belonging to partners, which is very similar status to alleyway, the partner acquires from one another. My love, al gabei karka. What you said that it's correct when it's come to the ground, which is that's basically what Rav Asi said. So Gemara said, no, it's not. It's referring to the letoch kubato, that he put it into the basket of the buyer. It's also logical to say that this is Rav Zera's statement. He said if one measured and placed it in the alleyway, the buyer did not acquire it. So you see Rabbi Yochanan contradicted the statement one another, that one said Rabbi Yaakov said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that if someone put it in the alleyway, he did not acquire it, and the Rabbi Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that he acquired it. Also is a question for what Rabbi Yanai hold, which is the teacher of Rabbi Yochanan, that he says when it's come to a partnership alleyway that is basically belongs to both parties, he acquired it. You have to say that here with the measurement that one did into the basket of the buyer, which affect acquisition. In the statement of Rabbi Yaakov, he did the measurement on the ground. which is not effect acquisition. And he said that's the final Shema Mina. That's the way you learn from this case. So it means that Rabbi Zera did not accept the response of Rabbi Yassi. Tashma, madad velo mashach lo kana. We said in the Braita, if one measured the produce but did not pull it, he did not acquire it. Ma'ila besimta, you have to say that that's applied to alleyway. Lo, alleyway said lo, bereshut harabim you said the public domain. So it means if he did it in the alleyway, he did acquire it. So the Gemara said, Yachei mareisha, explain to me the first clause of the Mishnah. Mashach velo madad kana. Meshicha bereshut harabim mikanya, you tell me that the pulling is applied to a public domain. Ve'abai ve'Rabbi Yaman et Rabbayu, both Abai and Rabba hold mesira kona. They said that passing effect acquisition in the public domain, it's like courtyard that does not belong to either of them. So they said, which is neither one, neither the purchaser nor the seller. So he said, if it's come to Meshicha, the pulling, so that's basically can acquire in an alleyway. It's come to a courtyard that belongs to both of them. And if he lifted the effect acquisition in every place, even the seller's domain. So it means that pulling in the public domain does not affect acquisition. So Gemara said, "My mashach na mediktane." What do you mean by saying that he pulled? The Mishnah, Mirshut Harabim lesimta, from public domain to where? To alleyway. Yachei maseifa, imaya pikach. What we learned in the last part, that if the person was shrewd, what did he do? Socheret mekomam, basically rent that location where the produce is located. If it's a public domain, from where he can rent the place where the produce is located. So he said, so they said, if the produce is in the domain of its owner, if he's smart, so he rent the place where the produce is located from the owner. So it means that the seller can return to the buyer that produce in his domain. So therefore the buyer can buy this produce in kinyan chatzer. Now, there's a halacha that I would like to share with you. It's the Rashbam in Sefer Kitan Ilchot Mechira, chapter 4. If one sells produce in an alleyway or in a courtyard that belongs to both the buyer and the seller measures the produce directly into his own vessels, so the Rashbam said that the buyer acquires the produce only once the seller finishes measuring. The Vilna Gaon said that this is basically Rav Ashi's statement refers to the sellers. But the Ravid, that's what we're going to learn on page 86 in Mitzvah Hashem, said that the buyer does not acquire the produce by virtue of being measured into the vessels of the seller. Now the Shulchan Aruch in Choshen Mishpat 200 said if the produce was placed in the vessel of the buyer, he acquires it even if it was not measured. Yet other claims, that's the Rema citing the Tur and Tosfot, that even if the produce is placed in the vessels of the buyer, he acquires the produce only once it is measured or if the seller tells him to acquire it. Basically that's followed the statement of Yochanan. But we should know that you see it both in the Rambam and also in Shulchan Aruch, that in any event, the 4 cubits, the Arba Amot, surrounding a person effect acquisition on his behalf, and therefore a buyer can acquire the produce by virtue of these 4 cubits.